Hello everyone, welcome to 10 Minutes Astrology, the most easy way to learn astrology. Once a week, me and Alejo. Ta-da!
Hi
Welcome.
everyone, how are
Yeah,
you? Nice to see you all again, to meet you all
yeah,
again. We
everyone.
meet you, or yes.
Why we keep talking about that? And well, once a week, me and Alejo will bring you some particular themes in the how to learn astrology. We will checking the chart from all the different angles, step by step, help you to understand how we read the chart. And we will not ignore the tiny detail, but we just try to make it much easier to understand. And the things like 2 weeks ago, we start to go through the aspect with planet. So our aim is when a aspect receive a planet, and what should we care about and how we're going to interpret what they are related. And this is quite important, especially for learning astrology. So we already talked about aspect to the moon, which may relate to your emotion, feeling, security, and the people around you. And the aspect to your sun, that could be, heroic journey, it could be how to successful. So today we come to the Alejo, what are we going to talk
Aspects
about?
to Mercury, Hermes.
Aspect to Mercury, Hermes. Well, this is a very, very interesting that, right, Alejo?
Everything is interesting.
Yeah, I know astrology. Just try to make it more dramatic.
Yeah.
So, Alejo, could you tell us about the aspect to the Mercury? What should we focus on?
So Mercury, we said he rules communication, if you want, but I would say he rules the way we understand the world, the ways we make sense of the world, how we learn. So the way we understand how the world works, and that will create certain thoughts, that will create certain ideas, and that will also shape how we express what we want to say, so how we communicate. But it's not necessarily how we communicate what we say, because some people will communicate with images or with music or with other different things. So it's not just what we say, but how we communicate, how we express our ideas, and how we create these ideas, how we understand the world. Also, Mercury sometimes is related to the idea of siblings. So it might be describing how we relate to our siblings. And also the idea of short journeys. So things that we do, like journeys we have to do every day, going to work and these kinds of things. So aspects to Mercury will mean that this process of understanding and of putting out there our ideas and our way of understanding in the world, and this idea of exchanging. Also Hermes is the god of thieves and merchants, because it's the idea of exchanging things. So this process in which we exchange our understanding and we kind of get to an agreement with other people through this exchange is going to be affected by the planets that are aspecting Mercury. So again, if there are trines, whatever planet is trining Mercury is supporting this way of thinking, and it's giving it more resources to communicate in this way. If it's a square, for instance, it's challenging this way of thinking. It's kind of creating some kind of questioning about this way of thinking. If it's an opposition, the person will feel that every time I want to think, I want to express myself, whatever planet you have in the opposition comes from the outer world and forbids me from doing it, right? So depending on the kind of aspect, how this process is going to be affected.
It's so clearly, and when I think there is one magic in when you're learning astrology, or when you're working with astrology, is usually when you're talking about one planet, one particular planet, and that planet quality will apply to the moment. Like for instance, at this moment, we're talking about Mercury. Now I just feel what Alejo says is like so clear and helping us to learn. And and I remember that sometimes we talk about Pluto, and that was so Pluto-ish. We were just like, because that
Yeah.
was so interesting. Yes, thank you, Alejo. So the Mercury is about how we communicate, and I like the way you point out. It's not just communicate by words or speech. Some people communicate in different ways. And you say about it's a Martian, so it's like business things, and that was so interesting because when you talk about that, I just I just remember one thing when I learned in the Spanish, because the business
Hmm.
in Spanish is a negotiation
Ah,
and
yes,
a
it's true. Yes.
negotiation. So it's like I was like, oh, I can
Ah.
remember that word now. That's my Mercury moment. Yeah. And that how I remember how to say business in Spanish, because I think, oh, negotiations, and so interesting. So that is
Yes.
the way you're talking to each other, and how. And I like one thing. One of our colleague, Christine Skinner, she's very good in financial astrology, and she's talking about the for the trader or for the business people. This the Mercury suggests how they might process to make their decision to
Ah.
make a decision about how they're going to make profit. So the Mercury is a one thing she will never ignore, and that was quite interesting because when I teach in astrology, some people just like, no, well, Mercury is so boring. It's not very useful when you do the chart reading. It's not about love. It's not about business. It's not about. Okay, but they are everywhere because there is communication in love, in the relationship, in the parental and issue in the business, in how you succeed. Mercury is also everywhere. They might, but not maybe not a major thing, but
I
you
think
need
it
to
is a
come.
major thing. And I
Yeah.
think the fact, talking about the aspects of Mercury, one thing we could mention is that Mercury never wanders too far away from the Sun. You can never
Yes.
have a square of Sun and Mercury, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, which means
Mm-hmm.
that the way you think and who you feel you are can never be challenging each other. They might not be
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same, but they
Mm-hmm.
can never get to a point of stress and a point of too much of a challenge. And I think this means, I think actually this is a symbolic way of saying that the mercurial processes are so important, they're so
Yeah.
embedded in who we are, that they cannot be too far away from who we are. And I
Yeah.
think that's also why when somebody disagrees with our opinion, sometimes we get triggered so much because we feel like they're disagreeing with ourselves, like
Yeah.
who we are. And it's actually not so personal, they're just discussing ideas maybe. But because Mercury is always so close to the sun, sometimes we confuse them, I think.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So most of the time, especially for people who, or when you see the chart, when Mercury and the Sun are in the same sign or same house, that usually you just like, what am I going to say? Mercury is like the Sun, but that's how they express themselves, you know. So should we use a chart example to help our
Let's.
audience today? Yeah. Okay. Today I pick up this example is a very famous person, Malala Yousafzai. I think most people know about her. I think she's still the younger is the Nobel Prize laureate, winning the Nobel Peace Prize, I think.
Yes.
And I really admire her wisdom, courage, and the way she talk. I think, especially for younger, she was become well known when she was a little girl who trying to against the Taliban to prohibit people to, especially girls, to receive education, and then she
Yes.
gets assassinated and she gets severe injured. I think, and even when she recovers, she still be very brave, stand out. She's continuing doing it. I think that is a. I think I'm curious. That make me very curious about her Mercury. When we see this chart, we will see well, her Sun is 19-degree Cancer. Her Mercury is a 6-degree Leo, a Leo Mercury.
Yeah. Which probably means for her education is important to express her mind and who she is probably very important for her.
Mm.
It's a way of
And
it's something she can be proud of.
yes, yes. And another thing, I think this is how she think. Education is so important for everyone because she believe that education can change people,
Yes.
and you can see that set of aspect when Mercury right opposite Uranus.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And there, I think there is Uranus here is in the 7th house, Mercury here is in the 1st house. So there is this sense of I am according to what I think, according to what I say, because Mercury is in the 1st house, so I'm identified with my ideas. And every time I try to put that into the world, I meet these people outside who are so different from me and who are challenging my sense of identity, because it's the opposition, right?
Yes.
And I think by somehow introjecting, instead of projecting the Uranus quality outside, by starting to introject that, she becomes an eccentric, not eccentric, eccentric in English has a negative word, but she becomes somebody out of the, in her ideas and her speech and her way of understanding the world becomes out of the standard.
That's why also, there is I find it very interesting because this opposition is between Leo and Aquarius, between me and the group, between the authority, voice and another voice, especially when it emphasized with Uranus, and there is like a very powerful, people are allowed to have a different opinion, and that is so
Yes.
interesting. Yes. So how we going to make how to describe the way she think, the word she say, or what she focus on, is we can check on the Mercury's aspect. For example, here we use the example of Mercury and Uranus. So we can see her Mercury also have an aspect. We can read and agree. I think the Mercury has the aspect with also with the Mars and the
And
Pluto,
with Pluto.
and the nodal axis, but we can just don't go that first. But we can say with Mars, and that would be like a little bit forward or be brave to say something.
Yes, I agree. And it's interesting because her Mercury is in Leo, but Mars is in Libra. So it's fighting for my own truth, it's fighting for what I believe. But what I believe has to do with fighting for others, not just for myself, because it's Mars in Libra, right? So there is this kind of interesting balance between being proud of what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is actually that we need to fight for others. We need to support others in our fights. It's not just for ourselves.
Yeah. So we have at least two examples. I will give us an example about Mercury with Mars, and also added up with the sign Leo and Libra. This is what we can do. Always add a little bit up with the sign, and you can even put house on it. So Alejo, should we do the? Should we give a little bit of exercise for our audience today?
Yes, since the chart has Mercury trining Pluto, I would say the exercise could be that. What do you think it means?
That would be very
Mercury
interesting.
trine Pluto.
Yeah, because then first things you have to think about, okay, if Mercury is a language, or Mercury is the how you process your mind, what does Pluto mean? Okay, what Pluto would do, what action or what quality or what area Pluto will think. Then you at least part of things on the Mercury. Okay, Mercury, we're talking about a Pluto story. Mercury, how Mercury make a how Mercury process the mind decision is in a Pluto way. Is that with a very beautiful vision, or that with something else? Okay, think about this. Then step by step, you can learn how Mercury's aspect tell us some story, how we learn, how we talk, and how we process our mind, and how we receive or give out the information. This is the today's today's aspect to the Mercury, and next week, Alejo, what are we going to learn?
Next, we will go to the next one, Venus. Aspects to
Venus.
Venus.
So by sequence.
Yes.
We don't give surprise then.
When we get to Uranus, we do surprises.
Yeah, we will sometime. And yes, so well, thanks everyone for listening and watch 10 minutes astrology. Today we're talking about aspect to Mercury, and next week we were talking about aspect to the Venus. Stay in tune. Bye bye.